You have a quorum present. B, Chair's remarks.
I have none. Next item.
C, approval of the April 5th, 2023 meeting minutes.
Been moved by Commissioner Colleen and supported by Commissioner Dobb. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Next item, Madam Clerk.
D, unfinished business. There is none listed. Item 1, under new business, forwarding a final copy of the corrective action plan and Auditor General's assessment for the contract to provide medical examiner services performance audit report.
I'd like to welcome our Auditor General, Ms. Cora, her staff, and her guests. So, Ms. Cora, please proceed.
Marcy Cora, Auditor General. If staff could introduce themselves. I don't think it lights up. It doesn't light up.
Crystal Thomas, Supervisory Auditor.
Welcome.
Andrew Ray, Principal Senior Auditor.
And if our guests could introduce themselves.
How are you all? My name is Charlie Rose, and I'm the Division Director for the Wayne County Medical Examiners.
Welcome.
I have 2 other colleagues coming. I think they'll join us shortly.
What you have before you today, this is the corrective action plan that was submitted by the Department of Health and Human Services Medical Examiners Division, along with the OAG's assessment of the corrective action that was going to take place on the recommendations that were identified in our contract to provide medical examiner services performance engagement. I'm going to turn it over to Crystal and Andy, and they'll go through. We're only going to go through those recommendations that are in process. The 13 recommendations that have been implemented, we're not going to touch in this presentation.
Good morning. For the purpose and objectives for this engagement was to determine what corrective action management has taken to address the findings and recommendations contained in the Health, Human, and Veteran Services contract to provide medical examiner services performance engagement report dated August 1st, 2022. The original engagement objectives was to assess the contractor's compliance with key contract provisions, assess controls over revenues and expenditures, and assess processes for providing MEO services. The scope for this engagement was August 1st, 2022 through current, and the methodology used was gathering and analyzing data to ensure management has taken corrective action to address the findings and recommendations contained in the original report. If I could direct your attention to slide 4. The Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office is a division within the Department of Health and Human and Veteran Services, created in accordance with Act 181 of the Michigan Public Act of 1953 as amended. Their mission is to identify, investigate, and determine the cause and manner of death of people who died in the county of Wayne under the circumstances or conditions described by the Act. Their purpose is to provide forensic death investigations, autopsies, and toxicology services to the general public, medical, legal, and criminal justice community so they can be documented, timely, and accurately caused and manner of death for individuals who died in Wayne County. Our overall assessment was, as a result of our audit, we determined there were areas where the internal control environment as well as operational procedures could be strengthened. Our assessment of the 33 recommendations found that management took sufficient action to address 13 recommendations identified in the report. The remaining 20 recommendations are considered in process. For the sake of time, we will just discuss the recommendations that are currently in process. And therefore, if the plan action is implemented as described for the following corrective actions that are in process, the action appears to sufficiently address the recommendation. However, a follow-up review may be necessary in the near future to verify the described action actually occurred. For recommendation number 2A, that can be found on slide 6 or in the report on page 1. We recommended management within the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office continue to work with physician search firms to acquire staff levels sufficient to ensure the continuity of daily operations and obtain full name accreditation. The OAG reviewed the intergovernmental agreement and confirmed with the MEO officials that they are working to increase the number of pathologists from 4.6 to 9.6 full-time equivalents. We reviewed all appointment letters confirming the addition of a forensics pathologist. I'm getting tongue-tied, I'm sorry. Pathologist required to obtain the National Association of Medical Examiners accreditation by July 2023. In addition, based on documentation provided, the new pathologist's responsibilities will also include functioning in an educational capacity with the Wayne State University School of Medication to provide support for teaching, residency, and fellowship training programs. Sure.
Cora, you had a comment or a question?
I was just going to have our additional guests introduce themselves for the record.
Because people can't hear you. Yes, please. Tap it, and if it makes a noise, it's good. Tap the top.
That.
Top. This part.
All right. Good morning. Good morning, Committee Chair Basham and members of the Audit Committee. Harold and Nemo, Deputy Director and Chief Health Equity Officer for the Department of Health, Human and Veteran Services. I am here on behalf of Dr. El Sayed, who's leading the JDF Incident Command activities right now. He sends his regards, and we're here to answer questions. I know Charlie has begun. Oh no, I think it's been the auditor reporting on the findings, but we are here, as you know, we've been through a transition over the past year, and transitioning from my long-term vendor, the University of Michigan, to Wayne State University. And so I am very pleased to see the findings that we are either meeting, implementing those recommendations by our auditors, or working, progressing towards that. I am here also with my colleagues, Charlie Rose, who was the director of our medical examiner's office, and Mr. Caparu, who is the director of finance. So that Director Rose will answer any questions you have related to operations, and Mr. Caparu will answer any questions you have related to management and budget.
Welcome, and Ms. Cora and staff, please proceed. Thank you.
For recommendation 2B, that can be found on slide 7 or page 2 of the report. We recommend management within the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office implement procedures to ensure all pathologists within the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office obtain American Board of Pathology certification. Continue to work with physician search firms to acquire staff levels sufficient to ensure the continuity of daily operations and obtain full name accreditation. The OAG confirmed that Wayne State University and the Medical Examiner's Office will prepare a policy requiring physicians and pathologists to provide services to maintain the American Board of Pathology certification. However, the policy will not be completed until July 2023. For recommendation 3, that can be found on slide 8 or page 2 and 3 of the report. We recommend management within the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office implement policy and procedures to ensure medical investigators who have worked in the office for over 5 years obtain either the registered or board certified credentials for the American Board of Medical Death Investigators. Based on discussion with HHVS officials, the OAG confirmed position descriptions for investigators will include the certification requirements by the American Board of Medical Death Investigators, and current staff will be encouraged to obtain the certifications. Further, according to HHVS officials, they are in the process of implementing policies and procedures to ensure investigators who have worked in the office for more than 5 years obtain the required certifications. For recommendation 7, that can be found on slide 9 or page 7 of the report. We recommend management within the medical examiner's office implement policy and procedures to ensure information within the case manager database is periodically reviewed for accuracy and completeness in order to ensure the integrity of the information within the system. Based on information provided by MEO officials, policies and procedures will be implemented to ensure a monthly audit of the case manager system is conducted to verify that all data fields are correctly populated. Additionally, the proposed policy will include the scheduled intervals for monitoring. Recommendation 8A can be found on slide 10 or on page 8 of the report. We recommend management within the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office perform weekly reconciliations of physical body counts to case manager database, including those stored in the anthropology room. The reconciliation should be performed by someone independent of the weekly body count. The OAG obtained and reviewed a copy of the policy for body inventory. We confirmed the policy requires the lead autopsy attendant to perform the weekly body count inventory and the lab manager to reconcile the inventory to the case manager database, resulting in the recommended segregation of duties.
All right, Commissioner Kleen has a comment or a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I noted the date that this audit first came out was August of last year. And then, of course, you have to have a corrective action plan come in, so it's just getting to us now. My question is on a number of these recommendations. I think there's 20 that are in progress. A lot of them have the date, and these ones that we're talking about now have a March 31st date, which of course is past us. We're in April. Are there any, I don't know if the Attorney General or the Auditor General, are there any updates on those March 31st dates that we thought that they would be implemented by that date? How do we track that?
Those that have updates, we had 2 meetings with the representatives from the medical examiner's office, and those that had updated to policies and procedures are identified within the corrective action plan. Those were the target, for example, the 8B or the March 31st, 2023 was a targeted implementation date. This was the date at the time we did the assessment. This assessment was completed prior to the policies and procedures being completed. So we weren't able to actually verify that the action has actually taken place. That's why there'll be a follow-up in the future. But we wanted to make sure that their corrective action made sense to us and would address the recommendations.
Oh, I've got that. So, because there's some with July implementation dates, October of this year. So what is the plan by the AG for updating this corrective action plan?
What our next step would be, once we've had time to get the new systems in place and all the action has met their targeted implementation date, we will go back and do a follow-up engagement to make sure that the action they said they intended to do actually did take place.
Okay, because you use the boilerplate language as you do in all your corrective action plans. A follow-up may be needed in the future. Can we take may out of there and say a follow-up will be coming, since we have like 20 that, at least in this report, have not been implemented yet?
Right, and what we do when we do our follow-up engagements, we do our follow-ups based on risk to the county. We believe this engagement was such a high-profile engagement that a follow-up will take place.
Yeah.
And it depends upon when the follow-up will take place, just based on the risk, but this one would take place
Yeah.
over other follow-ups.
Yeah, okay. I'll look forward to it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed.
For recommendation 8B, that can be found on slide 11 or page 9 of the report. We recommend management within the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office follow up on any discrepancies and ensure case manager accurately reflects the disposition of all cases. As previously discussed in recommendation 2021-8A, the OIG confirmed per the policies and procedures, once the reconciliation takes place between the physical inventory and is recorded in case manager, the lab manager will address any discrepancies. For recommendation 8C, that can be found on slide 12 or page 10 of the report. We recommend management within the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office, instead of release, implement a unique code to classify bodies that are never ordered to be transported to the morgue. The OAG has confirmed with the MEO officials that codes and case manager will be modified to classify those bodies that were indeed ordered into the MEO and those that were declined. In addition, we confirm that a report will be developed so that physicians can review declined cases and determine if accurate. For recommendation 8D, that can be found on slide 13 or page 10 of the report. We recommend management within the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office conduct periodic trainings for staff assigned responsibility for input entered into the case manager system. The OAG confirmed that MEO will have training videos available for new employees and used as mandatory training semi-annually for all other employees in the MEO. Or recommendation 9B can be found on slide 14 or page 11 of the report. We recommend management within the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office develop, implement, and utilize a standardized checklist of required procedures and ensure that dates and results of procedures are documented in the case manager system. The OAG confirmed with the MEO officials that a tracking and service desk management system will be implemented to track the delivery of services, including the time to complete deaths, certifications, and cremation permits. Additionally, the service desk management system will include documentation for the disposition of all calls. For recommendation 9C, that can be found on page 11 and 12 of the report. We recommend management within the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office continue with oversight monitoring of all cases either not identified or released to ensure progress is made towards release to the next of kin or submission to the county for cremation. The OAG confirmed that the MEO officials would utilize an unclaimed, unknown investigator to monitor procedures taken for decedents not identified or for whom the next of kin has not been identified, so that progress can be made to either have the decedent released or submitted to the county for cremation. According to MEO officials, they are looking at using the Sherelle system to help with the tracking of such cases. This will conclude my part of the presentation. With permission of the chair, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Ray.
Please proceed.
I'll continue with recommendation 2021-09D, which can be found on page 12 of the report or slide 16. We recommend management within the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office, once all due diligence is completed, follow the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office guidelines for submission of decedents for county cremation. The OAG obtained and reviewed a copy of the policy for disposition of unclaimed remains. The policy outlines the procedures the county will follow when all efforts to locate next of kin have been exhausted, or the family has not taken the necessary steps to make burial or cremation arrangements. After 14 days, the MEO will begin processes for final disposition and/or indigent cremation or burial. Additionally, the policy identifies the steps the MEO will follow for final disposition or indigent cremation. Next is recommendation 10A, found on page 13 or slide 17. We recommend management within the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office implement the revised policy that determines a reasonable time frame for the completion of procedures by next of kin to expedite the release of a decedent. The OIG obtained and reviewed the decedent claim deadline policy dated January 31st, 2023. We confirm the policy will provide a specific number of days that once the next of kin is located, we'll have to make arrangements for the decedent. The policy further states that if the family refuses to make arrangements after a specific period of time, the MEO will follow procedures for final disposition or indigent burial or cremation. Next is recommendation 2021-10B on page 13 or slide 18. We recommend management within the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office incorporate the identified time frame into a disclaimer to be included on all next of kin release documents and clearly presented on the Medical Examiner's Office website or homepage, stating that a decedent left unclaimed for the specified time frame may be cremated by the county as an indigent cremation. Based on discussions with MEO officials, the OIG confirmed that they are working with Wayne State University to utilize policy to adopt culturally appropriate disclaimers that will be included in all next of kin release documents and clearly presented on the MEO website that states that a decedent left unclaimed for the specified time frame may be cremated by the county as an indigent cremation.
Stop you for a second. Commissioner Kleen has a comment or a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is very sensitive stuff here with unclaimed bodies. And so for what this new state law says, after 14 days, medical examiners can begin a process for what to do with the body. Do I have that part correct? So what's out there? Are there like industry standards or, you know, for what a proper time frame is? Because we have discussed at the commission here before how difficult it can be to identify some of these bodies, whatever the police have and or don't have for how it's identified. So what I don't want to have happen is families to go, hey, what happened? We had a body down there, what happened? So this after 14-day period, when the MEO can start taking going through some steps, some processes, could somebody please describe that process to me? What is going to be done after 14 days?
And how this ties back to our original recommendation, and then I'll let Ms. Rose speak more to the detail of it. But this primarily was those bodies that were in the medical examiner's office. The next of kin had been identified, but the next of kin had not made arrangements to move the body out of the medical examiner's office or to allow for the county's cremation.
So it's specifically those.
This one recommendation right here was. Ms. Rose may want to add to the detail with the state policy in the 14 days. So the 14-day policy from the state.
So I'm sorry, after 14 days, the law states that we are able to move forward with indigent burials. But at Wayne County, we drafted a policy that we're going to be gracious and give a 30-day period before we move forward with the indigent burial process.
And that will be for all bodies in the morgue that are there over 14 days?
Correct.
Sounds like a good step forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed.
Next is recommendation 2021-12A on page 16 of the report or slide 19. We recommend management within the medical examiner's office establish policies and procedures for MEO personnel for the receipt and logging of all inquiry or complaint calls during business hours. According to the MEO officials, the existing MEO auto attendant system will be replaced with an advanced call center service management solution system called Sherwell. This system allows for the reports of death to be taken 24 hours a day through a call center. Calls will be managed in the queues with callback functionality. The automated phone answering system will create a contact record and incident number with updates in order to better serve customers. The OAG confirmed policies and procedures are being developed to be used along with the new system and will be in place by May 31st, 2023. Next is recommendation 2021-12B on page 18 of the report or slide 20. We recommend management within the medical examiner's office establish policies and procedures for the handling of after-hour inquiry or complaint calls. According to MEO officials, the new automated system, Surewell, allows death calls to be reported on a 24-hour basis through a call center, which would allow agents and supervisors to manage calls in the queues with a callback functionality. The OAG confirmed that they are currently in the process of implementing policies and procedures for the handling of after-hour inquiry or complaint calls. And likewise, the anticipated completion date is March 31st, 2023. Next is recommendation 2021-12C on page 19 or slide 12. We recommend management within the medical examiner's office establish a log to track all inquiry or complaint calls. That includes the names of both the individual making the inquiry as well as the decedent who is the subject of the request. In addition, the disposition or resolution of the inquiry should be noted for future review. The OAG confirmed that MEO officials will implement a customer relationship management system that will track inquiries and calls for services, calls and services, and allow for the generating of reports. The disposition of calls will be documented in the system as well. Recommendation 2021-12D on page 19 or slide 22. We recommend management within the medical examiner's office work with DOIT to implement an automated phone system. According to the MEO officials, they will implement an advanced call center solution that will be designed to streamline the handling of all call center interactions. Recommendation 2021-13B on page 20 or slide 23. We recommend management within the medical examiner's office work with the Department of Information Technology to implement a formal service request tracking system for all incoming requests for services. This system should capture information such as the date a service was requested, the date that the request was received, the payment information, the type of service being requested, the staff member assigned to complete the service, the date the service was completed, as well as when the requested service and documentation was returned to the requesting party. The OAG confirmed with MEO officials that they will implement a customer relationship management system, which will assist the MEO in tracking metrics to report on all various data elements, such as the tracking time to complete death certificates, cremation permits, regardless of the volume. Recommendation 2021-14A on page 21 or slide 24. We recommend the medical examiner's office develop and implement policies and procedures that dictate that specific personal property detail is to be consistently documented in the case registration summaries, the case manager database, the property logbook, and on property envelopes, including detailed property description, disposition of property in the field, when the property was obtained, and when the property was released and who it was released to. The OAG confirmed with MEO officials that they are in the process of developing a policy to ensure documentation of property is completed accurately and consistently across all points of entry. Additionally, the case manager database will be updated to ensure all relevant property detail, including the type of property, the release date, and the recipient of the released property is included. As a monitoring control, the MEO has indicated that identified requirements for the documentation of property will be incorporated into quality assurance evaluations. Recommendation 2021-14B on page 21 of the report or slide 25. We recommend the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office development and implement the following policies and procedures. Requiring an independent verification of property obtained and documented in the property logbook and electronic case manager database. According to MEO officials, they are in the process of developing a policy for the documenting of property. The policy will include an independent verification of all property obtained and documented. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Ms. Cora?
We touched on it a little bit, but I'll go through it again. The Office of Auditor General's policies and procedures require to request a corrective action plan from the auditee 30 days after the report is received and filed by the Wayne County Commission. So our process is once we request a corrective action plan, we get the corrective action plan, we do an assessment of the corrective action taken by the auditee, In some instances, the implementation date for the corrective action may be in the future. We don't want to wait 7 months, 8 months down the road to determine if the corrective action they plan on taking will address the recommendations and reduce the risk. So we look at the action they're taking. We determine if we believe it will address the recommendation, reduce the risk, and then we determine that it's in process. By waiting a year, if the corrective action they're planning on taking doesn't address the recommendations, then we wasted a year when maybe we can help them get on track to get the right corrective action in place. So that's why many of these are still in process, but a follow-up will be completed in the future to make sure the corrective action has indeed been implemented.
And this is to the MEO. There was the media, for whatever reason, did another story about the morgue, and they actually had listed the Seton as I think it was wound up being, they changed it from, what was it, homicide to
From homicide to
suicide.
suicide.
And is that process been corrected? I mean, why would a professional person say it's this one day and then the next day change that? I mean, do they not have the enough forensic pathologists to, I mean, are they overstressed from doing their job, or do we have, are we successful in hiring more forensic pathologists?
So what I will say, I can't speak for the doctor that amended her findings because I'm not a pathologist. But what I can say is that we currently have 5 full-time doctors and 1 that's part-time, and we have confirmed an additional doctor that's currently a fellow, but she will begin as an attending in July, and we're in the process of hiring another. So of course, yes, the caseload is high at the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office, but we are actively recruiting more pathologists to handle the caseload.
It's still, you answered part of my question, but the other part of it too is if you examine someone and once you predict, it's like playing basketball. You say the Pistons won, and then next thing you know, an hour later, you say, no, it wasn't the Pistons, it was Milwaukee won. It's like, how do we have professionals who get paid decent wages to sign a statement and then change their mind? I mean, did they not get enough information? I mean, obviously there is a reason they changed their mind. Have we corrected that problem, and what caused that problem to exist?
Understood. Again, I can't speak to that, but I can follow up with the doctor that handled the case, and I can send you a response.
I don't want to just pin down that doctor, but I'm talking about process. If we have procedures in place to where we prevent that in the future, or we can justify how we said, well, it was a homicide. Well, because you got a little pressure, you want to change it to a suicide? I mean, was it pressure? I mean, why would somebody change their opinion that are professionals?
I understand. I will say that during that time, they were under U of M, and now that we do have this new partnership with Wayne State, we do have frequent meetings and about policies and procedures so that these mishaps won't happen again.
And while I'm at it, what about the tracking and the service desk management system? Has that been improved to where?
So yep, so we're using the Sherwell system. It's in the testing phases, and so over the next few months or so, we will be moving that live.
For the commissioners that have comments or questions? If not, Ms. Cora.
I would just like to thank Ms. Rose and Mr. Caparone and the rest of the representatives with Health and Human Services. We spent a great deal of time on this corrective action plan. We had many meetings going over the corrective action was going to be implemented. So just want to thank them. There was a lot of recommendations that we had to assess. So just thank everybody for their cooperation, and staff too.
I'd also like to thank the MEO and also the Auditor General and her staff. This is not an easy task, and But I appreciate us moving forward, and I think we've done it in a positive way, and I appreciate the comments and questions from commissioners like Commissioner Kling. So thank you. Anything further? Okay, can I get a motion to receive and file? Ordered by Commissioner Dobb to receive and file. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. It is passed. Next item, Madam Clerk.
F, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee. Public comments.
Is there anybody from the public who would like to comment? Anybody online that would like to comment? Anybody from the public who'd like to comment? Second time? Comment? Next item, Madam Clerk.
Adjournment.
Can I get a motion? Moved and supported. All those in favor?